If there was a favorite song, I'm gonna go with Bring the Noise. Bring the Noise to me is the quintessential Public Enemy song. Bring the noise!
Bring the noise, louder than a bomb, fight the power, Black Steel in the hour of chaos.
Black Steel in the hour of chaos, that's my favorite song. He said, I got a letter from the government the other day. I felt it in my soul.
I have too many favorite songs from Public Enemy. Black Steel in the hour of chaos. Rebel Without a Pause made me cry when I first heard it. My Uzi weighs a ton. I'ma forget Fight the Power. I'm wild. The records put a different battery in people's back.
My favorite Public Enemy song, Rebel Without a Pause. East Side wins again.
You can't really ask one song that's not from Public Enemy.
My favorite Public Enemy song is Fight the Power, and I'm thankful to be on the remix 2020 version.
You know, James Brown, Black and I'm Proud, spoke for their generation. Fight the Power, spoke for our generation.
Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. Round of applause. The truth speaker have the beat. The Oracle. Rolling Stone said that they had the number 15 best album made of all time when it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. But I got that album in my top 3. What does Rolling Stones know? No, I'm kidding. They know a lot. They did a good job.
What do they know?
What do they know, right? He told me to listen to Farrakhan. He said Farrakhan is a man I think you ought to listen to, and helped shape my mindset as a young black man, helped us embrace who we are, our heritage, and taught us the trickery as he learned it growing up as a young black man. Look at the trickery. See what's beneath the curtain, what's behind that curtain. He's here today, man, one of my good friends, somebody I really, truly admire, take cues from, and always want to stay on his good side, the one and only Chuck D from Public Enemy. Round of applause.
Yeah.
Water brother knows.
Hey.
Hey, Chuck.
Man. Oh, man.
I know you.
Hey, Heather. How you doing, Heather?
What's up, family? I'm good, brother. I'm good. Blessings to you and your family, to everybody. Much love to you, Chuck. You know, always salute.
Always. What's up, everybody in the crew? And Sway, me and you been doing the dance, man, you know, the last 6 to 7 months, man, in different pockets, and it goes Sway. Yo, I mean, we've been doing the dance like the last 7 or 8 months, maybe the last year, ever since Davies, commemorating my man Davey D's night out in the Bay. So it was great seeing you and Tech out there, man. And you know what? Not too many people understand how important the morning is, man. But you've been our mornings, man, and our sunrises for so long, man. So we thank you for that, man.
Oh, that's beautiful, Chuck. Tracy G is on here too with us. And,
hey, King.
Man, I really appreciate it.
Hey, Tracy, how you?
I'm doing swell, man.
Chuck, that means a lot. You know, Chuck may not, but Chuck realizes it, but maybe he may always forget. And I'm gonna tell this story. When King Tech and our first came in the game, we came in as a rap group called Flynamic Force, and it was we adapted the name that the Beat Boy crew we was a part of had, and it made it into the rap group. And we did music independently, citizens, and we did it on our own All City Productions label. And one of the songs that we ended up sampling, doing had a Man Paris sample in it, Hip Hop Bebop, I think it was called. And the hook was a voice that said, "Follow for now." We sampled Chuck's voice, Heather, and that became our first song to really go national. Was the song "Follow for Now." We got a video of the whole 9, and that song actually, Chuck, and I have to send it to you, was the catalyst to us getting a deal with Giant Warner Brothers.
Oh, man, that was fantastic. I remember when that song was going around because, coincidentally, you know, my brother, Daddy O, who also is Stetson Sonic Hall of Famer, you know, also has a subsidiary label with my label, released 5 stellar albums the last 3 years. You know, Daddy O and I, on our first year going out nationally on the Def Jam tour with LL, Dougie Fresh, Houdini, Eric B. and Rod Kim, we shared the bus, Stetson Sonic and Public Enemy, 13 people on the bus. And we used to go to every single territory before it was really known and popular outside the New York area. and even outside the L.A. area, which was, they maybe the second market if you want to look at it, and not to talk about New York was still Philly or whatever. And we used to go and come back to the bus like, yo, just the number one MC in Arkansas. And we used to bring their tapes from we go to all those spots, and they would be so happy that they come on our bus and they get this light from us who's on the tour, and we get them in the concert. And I remember even playing K-Pool, and we were always the guys that be like, come on in, man, we gonna bum rush the show. And that's where bum rush the show comes up out of. Get a little crack in the door and get your people in the concert for free. So we went and we really took it vigilantly on how hip-hop was in other places other than where we came from. And so we really appreciate that. And I remember when Follow For Now was out, and I was honored.
Hey, man, thank you, Chuck, man. Round of applause. Salute to Chuck D, man, because that helped us get in the game. And what you're talking about right now, that information you passed around that's when the grid was not even in existence in the way that it is now. You got the album What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, which is out tonight, and it's touching on back then. You doing that, you were Spotify, you were the human, TuneCore, you guys were like the internet by doing that. You know what I mean? Can you see the parallels in that, because you were spreading the music before folks can get it?
Well, yeah. Anytime somebody says, what's the difference between 2020 and 1990 when Fear of a Black Planet happened, it's simple. It's that people have been born in the interim and they've died. The same people that was in the mix back then, a lot of them not in the mix now, different people in the mix now. So back then, a song could permeate and be quick to our society because we were ignored in the news. And we had the face-to-face, peer-to-peer, but we really didn't connect state to state, city to city, unless you had cousins or friends or went to college or in one of those situations. But the song and culture could get around quick. Today, it's the opposite. Everybody's recording. Everybody can get their point of view and opinion, good, bad, indifferent, or whatever, immediately out there into the stream of things. So culture and music pretty much will take a back seat and got to learn how to envelop the social media atmosphere, nation. And so that's the biggest difference. It is reciprocated. But what you're going to do when the grid goes down, before anybody could comb and think that their answer is going to be Easter eggs inside the album, which it is not, and maybe it is, the whole thing is using the whole platform to be able to get across one question. What are you going to do when the grid goes down? It just says, beware of government's tricks, plural. Beware, stay awake, be woke. Not just in these 40 days to go to the presidential election. Really, for maybe the next 100 days, if not the rest of your life. It's all right to go to sleep if you know somebody's next to you is woke. So beware of tricks, be prepared. Preparedness and awareness is very essential, especially for us people of color, black folk. We've got to have somebody awake at the wheel.
Mm-hmm. Chuck D is here. What you going to do when the grid goes down? When I listen to songs like Toxic or you mentioned Daddy O, you guys have a song called Yesterday Man on there that I really, truly like. It's so good to hear. By the way, shout out to Daddy O from Sonic, man.
And here's another one. I'll be remiss to say I'm really a selfless person. I don't like the attention of like me, or us. Paris, Arrested Development, and Nappy Roots are also releasing their albums today. So I would be remiss not to talk about we're strength in numbers, man, and strength in numbers is important for us as a genre, and we like to thank y'all for just allowing me just to say that.
Absolutely, Chuck. I'm a pivot, man. I'm sitting there thinking. I'm looking at your history with the label Def Jam, Def Jam has just been a staple in hip hop culture. It's just one of those pillars. It's the Eiffel Tower. It's the Empire State Building. It's the Golden Gate Bridge. It's just one of those things when it comes to hip hop that will always have its place and make its mark. And I'm curious to how was the industry model back then, because lately we've been hearing Kanye talk a lot about record companies and the contracts and how people don't have ownerships of their masters, and now he wants to give back ownership to people who masters he owned percentages of, and shit got to change. What would you say your knowledge of the business was back then when you signed with Def Jam, and what do you think about this plight that he's on?
It was okay. My knowledge in 1986, I wanted to get into syndicated radio with my guys in the early 80s, but you say syndicated rap radio in 1984, they look at you crazy like, what the hell is rap and hip-hop? So that dream wasn't going to happen. So signing with Def Jam, we called it the Great Surrender, because we surrendered our dreams. And, I already had categorized 3 rooms of records, so what's the big deal about making a record? But I said, well, with this, we could bum rush the show, come in from a bunch of different vantage points. And the contracts was what they was. We signed a major label deal contract. We signed a major contract with a label deal, which was an experiment. Def Jam was an experiment with CBS. And they had just had LL Cool J and the Beastie Boys and Original Concept Records. And I think Orange Juice Jones just got signed. So it was an experiment. And with that experiment, we got a pass-through contract at an embryonic industry in the business. But we looked at our thing and said, okay, if I got to surrender and sign this thing, my thing's 10 times better than what Melly Mel had to sign, or 5 times better than what Run DMC had to sign 7 years and 4 years prior. There was no upside. You had to build that upside. You had to build part of that mountain staircase to get up to the point where when we left Def Jam in 1998, it wasn't so much about a contractual disagreement. It's just that the expense of it tapped out. I went to 100 countries, but I couldn't reach 100 countries with a contract that I signed that said the world and the universe. So I was like saying, because I could get to Egypt, but y'all can't get to Egypt, but you got my rights. You can't get to the places I could get to. So I said, I politely got to step up out of there. Public Enemy delivered He Got Game, and the industry could not get to the rest of the world. We jumped into the internet field. We helped build the roads to the internet because we knew everybody was going to eventually be there in 10, 15 years. I built with Prince, David Bowie, Tom Petty, Todd Rundgren on help building those particular roads. And now here we are, now streaming in 2020. I could not do what the major systems did, even if we revised the contracts. It was too top heavy. So as we're all here for the betterment, Kanye sounds like I sounded 20 years ago, but the opportunities that he has now with his name is still vast. What he's trying to do is get his masters back. And you got to say, well, that's something that him and his people could probably figure out. But as I was leaving, Kanye was coming in, and I was letting everybody know, boom, this was going to happen. But you got to go through that first door to get to that top floor.
Got to go through that first door to get to that top floor. Hey, Chuck D is here, man. The new project, what you going to do when the grid goes down. Heather, you want to jump in? 2 icons should be having conversations.
Oh, please, Sway, shut up. Chuck, I listen to your voice, and it's so distinctive. We all know that. And Sway is another person who has a very distinctive voice. But for you personally, how does it feel like nobody could really mimic a Chuck D record? People's like, oh, let me spit a Chuck D, but nobody could really mimic your style. Have you ever been told that? Did you ever notice that? Nobody can ever really duplicate what you do?
Well, thank you for that, Heather B. Well, as you know, as a New Yorker, I come from rhyming in the 1970s. You know, I'm a year behind Curtis Blow, so that's how old I am. Back then, you were measured by your voice because most systems were cheap. Right. So I used to make a Radio Shack mic sound like, $1 million. And the next cat that gets the mic, they can't be heard through a scratchy system. And they be looking at me like, yo, his mic sounded better than mine. And I said, the same mic. And back then, the cocky me on the mic would point to my throat. So it's just that, you're born with some things. My father had the voice of God. He could yell from one town to the other town over a mountain so you couldn't say, no. He said, didn't you hear me call you? Nah. No, everybody heard him. So that was something I was blessed with. But also when hip-hop and rap came about, I wanted to be a sportscaster. Last night I was on NBA TNT. I wanted to be like Marv Albert. So, but when hip-hop and rap came about and I was influenced and watching guys like DJ Hollywood, Eddie Cheever, Melly Mel especially, I said, man, I could do this rap thing. I could get on that mic, and that's how that started. But I would tell you this, y'all, Tracy, Heather, and Sway, it's me and Flavor. You cannot unhear Flavor. You can't unhear. There ain't nobody ever sounded like Flavor. So when you put us both together. It's not about flow. It's about you can't unhear us. So with the Def Jam thing, the thing that made it easy to say, Def Jam with us was a settlement because he wanted. So Flavor's a star. So he's like, Chuck, man, we did the internet, we did the independent thing, man. I want to go big, man. I want to go major, man. I'm like, but then Def Jam was like, it's like, wow. If we do something major, fine. You right, Flavor. You rode this for 20 years. Def Jam should be that place, and they were very embracing. And I leave this with this point. And this, not to say 2020 was a part of it. This has something to do just with hip hop and rap music. You can't take the culture of hip-hop and rap music and quantize it with numbers only. At what point does importance become great, or if not greater than popularity? And that's one thing when these companies, when they actually engage inside black music or soul, you don't own black. You don't own soul. You are lending into a culture. So therefore, this is what Kanye is even talking about. It's like, I made a deal with you. You make a deal with me. I don't own the culture. I kind of own my music, but I don't own the culture. You don't own the culture. Let's make a fair deal. What goes back to the people? And I think what the least we can do, especially in this time now, is just be able, if you're on social media, be complimentary to somebody at least once a day. We know that there's digital hate out there, and the digital hate is easy because we don't have face-to-face human interaction. Even in face-to-face human interaction, as black folks, if I want to talk about a black thing, even when we dislike each other, when we face-to-face, even on a dislike, we have warmth. And when we have warmth comes grace, even when we arguing. But in the digital realm, that warmth isn't there as much. So we got to gravitate on working on that. And it's not going to be a quick fix. These gadgets are here to be intermediaries in many ways. So Prince said it best 20 years ago when he said, you got to work on managing gadgets and technology because if you don't, it will master you. So we got to know who we are, but more importantly, who we are not. And I think it's a beautiful time for a culture, but this is also a very curious, precarious time in real life. Breonna Taylor verdict, you got younger energy that now expect the expected, and that is not cool. And so when it comes down to policing and reform, what you need is older heads who are clear, but they don't assume leadership. Young energy is leadership. Old heads, like myself and others past me, should be there to counsel, advise, direct. You don't beat the energy between people from 20 to 60. Those numbers are real. Numbers are real because revolutions around the sun are real. And if anybody said numbers ain't real, you don't see people say, you know what, I'm going to stay in this year, and in my mind, I'm going to stay like this is December 43rd. I was like, no, December 30th, you on to the next number, man. So, I mean, but this is what OGs do. OGs do to clarify young cats how to preserve their energy, when to use their energy. You just shouldn't be there to stop their energy because that's when they say, sit down, man, you in my way. They the ones at 20 and 30 that might be looking at a 2-year-old seed, looking at them saying, I don't care what you're into. I'm hungry. I need this now. The most I could do to tell somebody in the area of leadership, I said, okay, I might be this or that, if you want to put me in the game, match my energy when I was 30 years old. You could Google it. So I mean, and not to weigh one against the other, but this is where we're at, man. And authority and civilians, a big gap. Misinformation's out there. We don't want to make light of what they call scholarship. The reason why we don't diss scholarship and scholars, you know why? Because in scholarship and tenure, or somebody that studies something, they got to read the whack shit. They got to go and digest and read the whack shit and the shit that they lean towards as being fact and truth, and read them both and comprehend them at a fast speed. Most of us read what we want to read and read what we like. But scholars like Dr. John Hendrick Clark read everything until he was blind. You couldn't challenge dude because he read maybe 60% of all the bullshit and could break it down. That's why we can't diss scholars. That's what scholars do. And the scholars are not celebs. They don't go shaking to the lights. Many, you got exceptions, but many of them people are deemed boring. And we need those people who are deemed boring because that's what we got celebs for. Shine light on them, step the fuck up out of the way, and let them do their thing and say, yo, that's the brilliant cat that y'all don't even know that we need to shine light on. So we get in trouble positions when we assume things that we're not, or assume positions that we're not ready equipped for. And I think those are some of the things that will clarify us into knowing how important this vote is in November 4th instead of pontificating, going off in directions that we can't handle. It's either or. It's the side we on. If you black, a person of color, or a broke person, a person that's poor in their eyes, that means the side you on versus the side that hates you. And the reason I say it's simple and plain, that hates you, because when they say that your lives don't matter or don't matter as much, that's spreading all the isms and, number one, all the hate. So you can't even deal with a situation that says that you don't matter and your lives don't matter. It's ridiculous. Right. So that's where we're at right now. And hip-hop could speak to that and accent that. Can it replace it as the main narrative? Probably not, because we're in a leaderless movement. And that's kind of good because everybody is stepping up and putting their voice and putting their activity to it. Last thing I'm going to say on that. When Young Energy took it to their local and said, you know what? You might say we're powerless, but we're going to stay in the state. We're going to stay in the town. And we're going to take down that statue and that symbol. And we're going to take it down because I found out, I Googled it, I put the Shazam up on it and found that this person, this statue is up here, is a straight cracker who actually cracked the backs and cracked the whips over us. We're going to take it down. The goon at the top, who I won't mention his name, but 45, when that dude said, I'm going to give 10-year sentences if you take down any of these symbols, that shows you that he hates you. How could you actually come up with a philosophy in your mind that think that voting for this dude is going to be good?
Chuck D, Public Enemy, new album out today. Make sure you get it. What you going to do when the grid goes down? Tracy, you want to jump in?
Hell yeah, I want to jump in. Chuck, so many different key words and key phrases you said. Just, again, reiterate the fact that you, my guy, are a leader's leader. And they make me think about this situation with Torey Lanez and Meg Thee Stallion. And I'm so curious about what your counsel would be for this 28-year-old man who put out an album addressing this incident. We know that Meg claims that he shot her. He's claiming his innocence. And now we're seeing spill out into social media conversations about freedom of speech, conversations about timing. You brought up, Breonna Taylor and that case and the injustice. Conversations about protecting Black women. Would you have told him to release this album?
I'm just confused by that. I can't lead into the confusion. That's from another time. But all I'm saying is that dude, this goes with just like anything, man. Sometimes the party should be by yourself in the room by yourself. If you can't drink and handle yourself out in public, lock yourself in the room, and when you're sober, then you could come out because you can't handle yourself. And there's another thing.
Yes, continue.
What back in the day, and I ain't going that far back in the day, before somebody always appeared to seem like they had a gun on them, right? There was always that counsel from somebody that said, yo, you ain't that dude. Somehow people look at a digital reflection in a mirror and become that dude. Before, back in the day, they used to call it beer muscles. It's like, man, this cat gets 4 drinks in them, and all of a sudden they want to beat up everybody in the room. Now you got what you call digital gangsterism, to the point where you think you that dude through your avatar. You think you that dude because all these texts coming in praising you. Now you think you that dude. It's like, really, lock yourself in your own room and face your own mirror, and then when you clear, then you could come out and you back to where you was, a quiet, shy person who has the ability and a great talent to bring people together. Outside of your talent, sometimes you should be told you're not that person. But, I mean, shooting his girlfriend in the feet, I'm like, look, it had to be made up, man. This story is out of Mars, man. Here's another thing about the world right now. Number one, in the year 2020, and let's say if we want to keep it hip hop or whatever, if women, it's straight life. If women ain't running things at least 50 to 60%, game is over, man. Dudes been fucked up so much, man. It's just done, man. It's prehistoric to know that you're gonna be looking at a dude running anything in 2027. Dudes fucked it up, and I don't know if it's testosterone or what, but when cats like, yo, we ready to go to war now, and I'm looking at a cat, man, in the United States. I've been to 116 countries. I was in Beirut looking at a line of people walking out of Syria, 40 miles long on bare feet. Cats is like, hip-hop cats from Syria like, Chuck, man, cats is talking to the United States. They don't even know what war is. I had to pick through rubble, man, to find food for my surviving seed who's on my back right now. Tell everybody in the world, fuck war. So when cats be using language like, yo, man, I'll take this toolie, we going to war now. I'm like looking at him, I said, war is when everything around you is at war. War ain't like I'm warm with my homies in the streets and I'm going to go to the crib, make me a grilled cheese sandwich, take a shit, shave and go to sleep in a bed and shit, and then get back out in the streets. Now, war is when everything is at war. We don't want that. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding is what Bob Marley is talking about. That's why you fight the power in the ways you can, because you fight for peace and love, but you got to fight for it. You got to fight through the hypocrisy. So we can't even put ridiculousness like, dude shot girlfriend in the toes, and all of a sudden you're putting out an album. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, really? Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah. It's like, that's mental illness. We can't place mental illness on a pedestal, man. We got to say, yo, man, I don't even know you, dude, but lock yourself in a room, man, really. Lock yourself in the room, save yourself. But the OGs, back in the day, they did OGs stuff, but this is why in the 80s during R&B, that's Reagan and Bush, we saw the influx of drugs and guns and money from other places. That destroyed the OGs, plus death and jail sentences. You take the OGs with their logic off the streets, the gun is the equalizer. This started in the 80s, man, when the OGs were then neutralized by the guns. If you got a cat that's 12 years old, he got a gun. The OG that's 36 years old, if he's smart, he's going to be like, I'm not fucking with this kid, man. Because, he's going to take care of himself. I want to be there to help, but he ain't listening to nobody. I could get across to him, but he think his gun is his best friend. He's going to find himself in the God mirror in a second. You had the logic, the wisdom, the understanding, and the best talkers were OGs. That's why, to me, in Rare Air, my brother, the guy that always sets a path for me in Rare Air, talked to him this morning, is Ice-T. Ice-T, as an MC, ushered in a blueprint for my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and my 60s. He cuts through it first. He's able to dynamite it in order for me to just go into the end zone. As far as in my life, the blessings I have from my father, and I'm fortunate to talk about it. He passed when I was 55. But in my life, I was blessed to have this and not to keep it for myself, but to spread it. Number one, growing up to 0 to 20, obviously, my father is an influence on how I should be as a 20-year-old. But the thing about it, having my father and blessed for the years afterwards, I saw how I should be as a 30-year-old. I saw maybe how I should be as a 40-year-old. I saw how I should be as a 50-year-old, and I saw what he was as a 60 and a 70-year-old when he passed at 77. I saw that template. I got it directly. He had the ability to untwist me. But he also said, Chuck, the tools that you got from me, man, never be selfish with it. If you got it, give it. And this is what, and let me be the artist that I could be, because my attributes I learned as being a man or as a human being, I was doing my best to give it all away. You don't go and buy a Public Enemy record. You could get the philosophy of how to do and explore yourself for free. It's not about what you're going to do when the grid goes down, about you getting the record. It's about asking yourself a question. What are you going to do when the eyes are on you if the tricks are played in front? Stay aware, stay awake. It's cool being awake. And, and that doesn't make us disrespect those that are asleep. And that doesn't make us disrespect those that cannot. Those that cannot are always help with those that can. And everybody can help each other. So I'm not meant to clowning homeboy, for his mental illness or he's putting out an album on. I just can't put that in my conversation right now. There's so many good things to talk about. I use social media to always big up somebody, and I said maybe I could spend my time doing that, keep it at the light, understand my lane, keep it moving, and not get in a position where young energy is telling my old ass to sit the fuck down.
There you go, Chuck D, man. Man, I appreciate you, Chuck. Come on, man. I told you we're gonna start doing the series. Every time you come.
My thing is like this, man. It's like at my age, if I can't teach, I shouldn't even open my mouth to speak. Most of the time, contrary to popular belief, y'all, I am quiet. I do listening. I watch. I like to shut the fuck up. I really don't like to talk at all. People that know me, I'm like that uncle. I'm going to give you 3 words and nod my head to keep it moving. But if you're going to keep asking me questions and you're going to ask me advice, I will be a fool not to tell you what I know. I'm not forcing it upon you. It's not like, Old Spice where I'm dripping it on you. It's what you can take. It's like they say about fish, man. You eat what you can eat and throw the bones away. That's it, man. Because, we're not here forever. We get, when you're in your 60s, you get jarring news every month. I'm serious. Because your surroundings start to erode. And this is different. We got 2 songs at the end of this album. One is called Rest in Beats for all the fallen hip-hop people. And it doesn't even cover everybody because it didn't cover the last couple of years. And then Flavor did a song called Rest in Peace Black Cat. 2 songs that in the album that talk about who was here and now who is gone. That's our reality. The older you get, you start seeing people around you transition out and disappear. You're here, give all you can while you're here, and that's our job and our duties. Because my dad used to tell me, he said, my dad was going to a funeral at 75. He was going to a funeral every month, man. And that's just the natural order of things. Numbers are real. When Ice Cube made Dead Homies, it was tragic because he was talking about his dead homies that were taken in their 20s, in their 30s, in their teens or whatever, losing their lives at an early age. This is different. This is seeing people disappearing around because of kind of like natural causes. Right. And they're disappearing. Illnesses are setting in. We had a pandemic. Pandemic is real as far as the disease is, whether you think it's pandemic or pandemic. I'm not getting into conspiracy theories. That's a long tail. But this past year, I had to do a double Zoom funeral for my aunt and uncle. Yeah. And so so I don't get into the things that might make people just upset because oh man, I lost people. So this is real. But I would tell you, the older you get, you start to understand that time is God and it's also the final currency. It's what you do with it. The final currency is time. You cannot control it. You can only manage your time. sometimes you can't share time with anybody else because people look at time differently. But to look and cherish time and to share time and look about time, that's God, you know. And I also feel like, you know, to make the society better, women have to be in a large percentage of running things with ideals. And it might not be comfortable across the board. There'll have to be a lot of surrendering at the gate. Yes, I thought that 3 septuagenarians running for the presidential at the United States, Biden, Bernie Sanders before, and I supported him because of his ideals, not the fact that as a 70-year-old, 80-year-old going to be any president. They can't speak to the energy that's needed. We already saw President Obama go from a 44-year-old man into a, you know, kind of a weathered 50-year-old person, because when you in white supremacy seat trying to do some of the right thing, it's going to wear and tear at you 24 hours a day. If you're a white supremacist in the seat, it's like going down a hill on greasy roller skates. It's easy to do. You could go golfing half the time. White supremacy will work its own gravity or sometimes mid-gravity on us. So I'm just saying that time is the final currency. Things could change. Got to keep working on it. No days off doesn't mean that a day off means that no days off means you're going to be working in the trenches. But when somebody works, somebody chill. When somebody chills, somebody works. It's a collective thing. End of my story.
Yeah, Chuck D, man. Hey, man, I love you, Chuck. Give it up for Chuck D. And we're going to have you come back. You know, what you're going to do when the grid goes down, Chuck. I hope, first of all, it's an amazing album. You know, I sat and listened through every track, and even the interludes. And George Clinton, Cypress Hill, of course, DJ Premier, Mike D, Ab Rock, Run DMC, Daddy-O, Nas, Rhapsody, Black Thought, Jahi, YG, Questlove, Ice-T, PMD. What up, PMD? Yep. You know, all of these folks are featured on this incredible project. It's going to be great for you to sit and tune in, play it in the background when you're at home this weekend, play it in the front. Chuck D, tell Flav I said.
Can I say one thing, Sway? You know, it's commonplace for people to kind of like say, okay, they're with Def Jam, so we're going to get a lot of collabs and features on it. It didn't happen that way. All this happened organically, and it just pieced itself into the point like me, Primo, we're on tour. We're going to do this song over here, the BET thing with Questlove put together, and then all of a sudden that became part of it. We already was doing things with Ice-T, and I have personally reached out since these guys had brought me in. This is an important note. Jam Master Jay and the MCA brought me into this thing with Run DMC and also the Beastie Boys. And Rick Rubin chased me down for 2 years, from 84 to 1986, along with my man Andre Brown, Dr. Dre, who we got fundraiser event for this weekend, next weekend, in fact. So they had brought me into Def Jam. I resisted that. I wanted to go on radio. They brought me in because of the dissonance of Public Enemy #1. What had happened out of that, they had brought me in at the Garden show that Run DMC played, holding up all the Adidas. Jay turns to me, and Jay was our leader, our union leader. Jay turns to me and said, come on, Chuck, come into this Def Jam thing. It ain't so bad, right? As I'm looking in Madison Square Garden, and they holding up 25,000 Adidas shoes. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. I get in the situation, and because of Public Enemy #1. Fast forward, turning 60 years old, a 60-year-old birthday present for me, I reached out. So I work with DMC all the time. I said, I got to reach out to Joey. I hit up Russell. I hit up Leora, and I said, I want to reach out to Joey. And I reached out to Joey, and Joey says, yo, I'm down. And I said, Joey, all you got to do is run, man. And then I reached out to Mike D and Ad Rock, who made a pact that they would not be rhyming anymore once MCA Adam Yauch passed. But they said, you know what, Chuck? We did bring that song in. We spread it around like wildfire to get you to come into this Def Jam thing. It's like, we'll come up with a routine and we'll see what we can do. And the fact that Run DMC Also, Terminator did scratches on it. Mike D and Ad Rock, and also Dre at the end, put together by my man C-Dot. That, to me, that is my gift in my years, my 33 and the third years as a recording artist, in my 60th year as a birthday. That, to me, blew me away. Run DMC, Beastie Boys on that record. Thank you so much.
Here it is, Public Enemy #1. Chuck D, we love you. Thank you, man. Big round of applause for Chuck D. All right, and get the album. And, Chuck, I'm going to reach out, man. Thank you for these stories and this insight and this information. Chuck D, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. Chuck D. We coming right back. Absolutely. Sway in the morning.